Okay, we're back again. So we're still in quarantine, or isolation, whatever you want to call it. Don't have much to do, so figured just played a few obscure video games the other day. We'll play some more, I guess. Alright, so what are we going to talk about today? Let's talk about the martial arts movies that changed my life. I've been a collector of martial arts movies since the 80s, since the VHS days. Yes, VHS. Everything's digital now. I've got everything archived, and I've got my own little database of martial arts movies. Love my martial arts movies. Let's talk about the martial arts movies that changed my life. Alright, here we go. Okay, F. Flashpoint. Flashpoint, starring Donnie Yen. Colin Chu as the bad guy, Louis Koo as the good guy co-star. A typical modern sort of martial arts cop story, you know? And Donnie Yen is playing his typical sort of character that he plays in these films. At the time of watching this, I was a pretty big Donnie Yen fan. Over the years, it's kind of dwindled for me. Kind of lost a little bit of respect for Donnie over the years because stories that you hear. But then again, I've never met the guy, so I can't judge. He is the #1 guy for action martial arts, especially with Hong Kong related films. And he has been now for the last, I don't know, 20 years, whatever it's been. He is the man. And it doesn't matter what he does. His choreography is the best in the industry. His weapons choreography has always been exceptional. And what I like about this film is it's very bare bones. It's very raw. It's one of the first movies where you actually got to see mixed martial arts integrated with Chinese martial arts in a movie like this. And it's really effective. The other thing is the villain, or the villains in the movie, they're very effective as well. And I can't remember another time before this. There was a long time before this where I'd watch a movie and really get invested in it and just cheer the good guy as he beats the crap out of the bad guys. There were a few sections in this movie where I was just cheering Donnie as he beat the crap out of the bad guys. Real effective, and to get that sort of emotional response from somebody, you know that you've made a great film, and this is a great film. If you haven't checked out Flashpoint, you've got to check it out because it's kick-ass. One of the best modern-day martial arts cop films that I can think of off the top of my head. Alright, here we go. We had to get into a Bruce Lee movie. So, this is an odd one. Game of Death. Now, the movie itself, as a product, as a finished product, it's a terrible film. It's a terrible film. It wasn't what Bruce Lee wanted. That wasn't his vision for the film. He'd passed away before the movie was finished. So, he had footage. They exploited the footage. They put a movie together. Now, what's one of my earliest memories of this film? One of my earliest memories of this film would be going back to when I was a kid. And Footscray again, we talked about Footscray in our gaming video. Footscray in the 1990s. It was almost a Chinatown sort of scenario when you went down there, especially at night time. And they had this place which was called Footscray Mall, and there was, I don't know why I was there late one night. I was there with my folks. I wasn't you know, running the streets making trouble. But I don't know why we were there. It was late at night, and there was a closed sort of audio-visual shop, you know, TV, selling TVs, stereos, things like that. And in the front window, they had a TV, a big TV, and they were just playing the last section of Game of Death. The part with Bruce with his black and yellow jumpsuit, fighting Dan Inosanto, fighting Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, with the nunchaku. And I just stood at that window and I watched that whole last scene of the movie, and I was like, wow, man, Bruce, he's the man, you know? Especially at that point in time, you know, if anybody talked about Bruce Lee, he was the king, you know? And that kind of stuck in my memory. I don't remember why I was there that night, and why I was standing at that shop front watching this film. Many years later, I started getting into the Bruce Lee DVDs when they started getting released onto DVD. Game of Death had this extra. The Game of Death DVD had an extra outtakes bit on the DVD, and it was just the uncut tower footage. Just Bruce with the uncut footage, fighting all the bad guys in the tower. I don't know why, I really loved it. I loved the different aspects of the scene, because what Bruce was going for was to see, you know, Jeet Kune Do, No Way As Way, going up against different styles. So you had a Korean style, you had a Filipino martial arts style, double sticks, love the double sticks, nunchaku, yeah, weapons fights, obviously, and then fighting Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at the end. It was a great concept, and it's a shame that we never got to see what Bruce's finished product would have been for this movie. You see the jumpsuit. It's iconic. I love it, you know? Seeing Dan Inosanto there in his one of his few movie roles. Was it his only role? I can't remember. again, studying Jeet Kune Do and studying Filipino martial arts and Chinese kung fu and things like that, it's very influential for me. So yeah, I do. I like this film. As bad as it is, I like this film. Oh man, In the Line of Duty. There are a bunch of these films. Now I think the first movie starts at part 3, so it's called In the Line of Duty Part 3. Now it was kind of a loose sequel to a movie called Police Assassins with Michel, Yeoh and Cynthia Rothrock. Yes Madam, I think that's what it was called, Yes Madam. And then there's Yes Madam Part 2, and it had a different name as well, right? I wasn't a big fan. Magnificent Warriors was the second one. So you had Yes Madam, Magnificent Warriors, 2 Michel Yeoh starring roles. Not related to each other either. So then Michel Yeoh had retired at this point in time, and Hong Kong needed to get a new female action hero. So this new female action star went by the name of Cynthia Khan. So Cynthia, the name, a Taiwanese actress called Li Xingyang, right? The first name, Cynthia, came from Cynthia Rothrock, who was in that first film. Khan came from Michelle Khan, because Michelle Yeoh was calling herself Michelle Khan in that point in time. So, Cynthia Khan, Taiwanese actress. And probably my favourite female martial arts action movie star from this time period. I wasn't a big Michelle Yeoh fan, so sorry. Cynthia Khan was my girl. Her first starring film was In the Line of Duty 3. Not a good film. I can't, But In the Line of Duty 4, that was a different ball game altogether. That movie was, I think, the reason behind that was because it was directed by Yuen, and co-starred Donnie Yen, a young Donnie Yen at that point in time. This movie is very thin on plot, a digital sort of soundtrack, very influenced by Harold Faltermeyer. So yeah, Cynthia Khan, Donnie Yen, a few other familiar faces, because it is a 1980s martial arts Hong Kong flick. Yeah, directed by Yuen. Now this movie, no matter who I showed this movie to, people who weren't into martial arts films, people who were, they loved it. Thin on plot, but it steamrolls, the movie steamrolls from one action scene to another action scene. There's a few things that don't make sense here and there, but then again, these movies, when did things really make sense? Now one of the highlights in the film is the fight between Donnie Yen and John Salviti. John Salviti, a big, awesome fight choreographer these days, one of the big boys. They were childhood friends, I believe, and so they obviously knew each other well. I think John was studying at Donnie's mum's martial arts school. The same with Michael Woods. Michael Woods, one of the last fights in the film, big burly dude. Donnie fights him towards the end of the film. Again, Michael, I think, childhood friends as well. So the three of them were childhood friends, from what I understand, and they trained together. So that's what makes these fight scenes so effective, because they know each other. They're beating the crap out of each other. Great fights. It was re-released as just In the Line of Duty, just to so there wasn't confusion with why isn't there part 1 and part 2? What happened to part 3? There was a part 4 and a part 5. There was a part 5, maybe part 6 as well. Those films aren't so good. Part 4 is the best of the series because of the people involved. Definitely worth checking out if you like your Hong Kong police martial arts movies. What's next? What's another big film to me? Ip Man. The Ip Man films, especially the first Ip Man film, starring Donnie Yen. Now, up until that point, Donnie wasn't the biggest mainstream sort of name outside of Hong Kong. And it was Ip Man that's put him into the stratosphere, worldwide, because there was no doubt about it that he was the man before anyway. The thing about Ip Man is it was the first movie to really portray Wing Chun properly. And when I saw this, when this movie was coming out, I knew who Donnie was, and I was telling everybody at training, oh, there's this guy, he was in this movie, In the Line of Duty, he was in this other movie, this movie's gonna be the best, check it out. And sure enough, the movie was a killer of a movie. The first movie was great, the second movie was great. Donnie was signed on to make a third film, which he didn't because there was suddenly an influx of a lot of Wing Chun related movies. And apparently, in an interview, Donnie said that he didn't want to be part of this thing anymore. Or maybe the money wasn't right, who knows. A couple of years went by, a couple of other Ip Man films came out without Donnie. Donnie came back, I guess he was offered the right price. Ip Man 3. And again, that movie is great. I think I've got a review of it on my channel here somewhere. That's a great movie too. Who else was in it? Mike Tyson was in it too. Now, Ip Man 4, just a bit of a waste of time, but still fun. It was still fun to watch. Why? Because Donnie plays him so well. The fight scenes are great fight scenes. It's very hard to find movies these days that have good, old school, Hong Kong related fight scenes. So, I love those films, but, most notably Ip Man 1, because it's very sentimental for me, especially that time in my life. I was very heavy into the Chinese martial arts at that point in my life, and to have this movie come out and represent Wing Chun properly for once, instead of making it all zippy and stuff, it was a great film, great to watch. Definitely, not accurate by any means to Ip Man's real life, but, it's fun. You got to check it out. If you haven't watched it, you like martial arts movies, period pieces, things that are loosely based on real life, check it out. Boom, okay, here we go. Something that was very influential to me growing up. Early 1990s. This is a movie starring Jean-Claude Van Damme, before he became the big boy that he became, and it was Kickboxer. Now, Kickboxer, the first time I think as a kid that I ever saw Muay Thai kickboxing, Thai boxing. First time that I'd seen a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. Now, what was I was in primary school. I was in grade 4. There was a kid that was in grade 3. He had a black and white photocopy of the Kickboxer video case. So I guess he'd copied it, and he needed to have a black and white photocopy of the video case. And I said, who's that guy? Jean-Claude Van Damme. I didn't even know it was Jean-Claude Van Damme. And he's like, this is Jean-Claude Van Damme. This is a movie called Kickboxer. Kickboxer, okay. Went down to the video store. There it was, in all its glory, in all its VHS glory. And sure enough, my dad took me down there. My dad borrowed it for me. We watched Kickboxer. Tong Po, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Kurt Sloan. Man, this movie changed my life. I was a young impressionable kid. It's not Shakespeare by any means, It's a martial arts classic. So, yeah, Kickboxer. I think the next film that I watched was Bloodsport. Again, another all-time classic martial arts movie, Bloodsport. I think I liked Bloodsport more than Kickboxer, but Kickboxer stays in my mind more in terms of it was the first Jean-Claude Van Damme film that I've seen. I think a couple of years later, not too long after Kickboxer 1, a movie by the name of Kickboxer 2 came out, starring Sasha Mitchell, who was in that show Step by Step. A lot of people did not like this movie because Jean-Claude Van Damme wasn't in it. Michel Qissi as well, playing Tong Po in that first Kickboxer film. I forgot to mention his name. He's very influential. If you watch any interviews with Michel, or they call him Michel, you watch any interviews with him, he's very influential on Jean-Claude Van Damme's career. Jean-Claude doesn't speak about him all that much, but I don't think there's any bad blood between the two guys. If it wasn't for Michel Qissi, you wouldn't have Jean-Claude Van Damme. Jean-Claude wouldn't have become the star that he became. Well, that's the impression that I get anyway. Back to Kickboxer 2. Kickboxer 2 takes off right after Kickboxer 1, and it's one of those typical scenarios where they kill off all the main characters from the last film, or most of them, and then start a new story. What is good about Kickboxer 2, and why I like Kickboxer 2 so much, you got the return of Tong Po, right? David Sloan, being Kurt Sloan's brother that we don't find out about until this movie, takes over the mantle, takes over the star role. There's a showdown between David and Tong Po towards the end of the film, and there's just this build up to this showdown that I think is so beautiful. I don't know what it is. It's just such a great climax. They beat the crap out of each other at the end of the film, right? And now I think Michel Qissi is also stunt doubled at points with Jacoby, who was from No Retreat, No Surrender. I found that out in a recent interview. I never knew that before. Yeah, the whole fight scene at the end. So people didn't like it because it wasn't Jean-Claude Van Damme. There wasn't that whole scissor kick sort of stuff going on. But this fight is so brutal. By the end of it, they're bleeding. They beat the crap out of each other. It's all slow motion too. There's all this slow motion. Just beat. It's a great film. Kickboxer 2, another movie that I just love. Mortal Kombat from 1995. I'm talking about the original Mortal Kombat movie. At the time when it came out, it was one of the most accurate video game to movie translations that you could find in a movie. And it still holds up to this day. Now, there are things in it that probably don't hold up because they're very 1990s. I went to go and see it on school holidays with my mother in the cinemas in the city. It was a quiet sort of theatre, there was nobody around. We went in there and we enjoyed this film, I always got my mother into the same stuff that I liked, so she liked, whether she liked it or not, she was into Mortal Kombat now. And we watched Mortal Kombat, and this movie was great. Now, what made this movie so great was, and I think a bit groundbreaking for an American martial arts movie at this point in time, was the aspects of the Hong Kong choreography that was in the movie. the soundtrack, which was made up of, you had dance music with Hong Kong choreography. This predated Blade, the Vampire Hunter with Wesley Snipes. This was one of the first films that I saw that had this vibe to it. There's a vibe to the movie that we didn't see before in Hong Kong, in American martial arts movies. Hong Kong martial arts aspects in this film, science fiction elements in it, and it was based on Mortal Kombat. So, you know, Robin Shu, Lyndon Ashby, Chris Casamassa playing Scorpion, Keith Cook playing Reptile, and the killer soundtrack score, which was by George S. Clinton. George S. Clinton, what else was he known for? American Ninja 2, the soundtrack to that film. That soundtrack kicked ass. So rewatching it recently, now that new Mortal Kombat film has come out, and a few other Mortal Kombat related stuff, this movie still holds up for me. I think it's still a great movie. The fight choreography is still bone smashing, you know? Great film. I hope it doesn't become underrated now with the new movie that's out. Okay, here's one of the big ones. One of the big ones for me. Directed by Yuen Kwai. 1984, 85? I don't know. No Retreat, No Surrender. Starring Kurt McKinney and a young Jean-Claude Van Damme as the bad guy. Man, No Retreat, No Surrender. This movie, for me, when I first watched it, it was brand new on TV. There was a commercial, we were watching something else, and it says, after the break, at 8:30, No Retreat, No Surrender. So I got my dad to record it for me, and I watched it the next day, because bedtime, I guess, when you're young. No Retreat, No Surrender. Man, I'd never seen a movie with choreography like this before, and again, choreography was by Yuen Kwai, coming straight from Hong Kong. It was a Hong Kong/US production, so I'd never seen a movie like this before. I'd never seen a wooden dummy before, a mukjong. I'd never seen a mukjong before in a movie. I'd never seen so many things until I'd seen this movie. And this stayed one of my all-time favourite martial arts movies until I became an adult, and I was still watching this stuff, I think when I bought the last of the VHS copies when VHS was going out of this film, I converted it to VCD, I converted it to DVD. It came out on DVD on my birthday. Man, I still enjoy watching this film to this day. The soundtrack to it, again, there were two versions of this film, two cuts. There was a UK version, a European version, and there was the version that everybody else got. The version that everybody else got was the one that I'd seen since I was a kid, so it had a very digital sort of soundtrack to it. It was, again, very Beverly Hills Cop style sort of stuff. You had your Rocky montages going on in the film, you had your Rocky sort of soundtrack song to it, Hold On to That Vision. Sounded like it was sung by Journey, where it actually was sang by Chalfant, what was his name? Kevin Chalfant, who ironically did a whole bunch of Steve Perry Journey songs later on in his career. Joe Satriani plays guitar on the main song as well. Joe Satriani, he's one of the big boys, guitar-wise. Cool, man. It is a cheesy movie, but that adds to the charm of the film. I remember the Internet Movie Database, when that came out. Anything that was trivia related was submitted by me, pretty much. Early 2000s, I don't know about now, because the Internet Movie Database sucks balls now. Yeah, this was before IMDb deleted the news group, so you were able to talk about a movie with other people that liked the movie. You could ask a question or something like that. The guy that played Scott, the bully, the chubby bully in the film, who's passed away now, he was unwell at the time. He started interacting on these forums. Kent Liffam was his name. And he was interacting with fans, he was talking with people about stuff, and it was shortly after that he had passed away, unfortunately. Who else was in this movie? Dale Jacoby, big martial art, studied under Benny the Jet Urquidez. Peter Cunningham, big kickboxing champion. Tim Baker was a big competition fighter as well. Plays Jason's father in the film. Yeah, man, the trivia that I got into on this film back in the day, I love this film inside out, crazy. One of my all-time favorites. Up next, Ong Bak, starring Tony Jaa. Man, when I first saw this movie, when we martial arts fans and movie fans saw this movie, Tony Jaa, this guy, one of the best from Thailand, and this movie kicked ass. This movie was one of the all-time great martial arts movies, and it stays very true to the formula of these martial arts movies. Tony Jaa just blew me away when I first saw him. And he blew everybody else away as well. And the next movie that came out after that, also another personal favourite of mine, Tom Yum Goong, also known as The Protector in America, where they edited it and they changed it, and it wasn't the same. I'm talking about the Thai version. Tom Yum Goong, he comes down to they steal his elephant. Where's my elephant? Great film. Again, it's not Shakespeare. These are martial arts movies. If you're expecting Shakespeare, piss off. right? This movie, choreography, co-stars, everything about it. These two movies, Ong Bak and Tom Yum-goong, my two favorite Tony Jaa films. Just great movies. Check them out. Okay, I'm gonna get on to one of my other all-time favorite martial arts movies now. These are all my all-time favorite martial arts movies. A Yuen Biao film, or Yuen Biao, depending on, what region you're coming from. Righting Wrongs. Co-starring Cynthia Rothrock. Again, another typical Hong Kong police martial arts movie. Directed again by Corey Yuen Kwai. Corey Yuen, one of my favorite, probably my favorite all-time Hong Kong martial arts movie directors and choreographers. Righting Wrongs, man, this film had two different endings, right? You had a happy ending and a kind of morbid sort of ending. Actually, both the endings are sort of morbid. One's a little bit more morbid than the other. This movie, when I first saw this got me into Hong Kong action films. This opened up the door for me, where I just started getting into the scene and just, tracking down Jackie Chan films, other Yuen Biao films, other Cynthia Rothrock films. Man, this was highly influential for me, highly influential. The Chinese martial arts that happened in this film, it's just the action, everything about this film, I just love it. One of my all-time favorites, really. The Master with Jet Li. Now, I was never a big Jet Li fan, especially in the 90s when he really hit it big. The Master is probably not seen as one of his best films, but to me, again, this movie, when I saw it on TV, SBS, we've got a channel here in Australia, SBS. They'll play foreign movies, and in the 90s they were playing a lot of martial arts, Jackie Chan films, Jet Li films, things like that, Bruce Lee films. And I think Jet Li, The Master, was the first film that I'd seen with Jet Li in it. And he's the villain in the film, Jerry the Golden Boy Trimble. Jerry Trimble was, he's a big inspirational speaker now. He goes and he talks to schools, he gets people on the straight and narrow. He's a real good guy. At one point in time, he was Glenn Hughes. He was a personal bodyguard of Glenn Hughes from Deep Purple. Glenn Hughes, one of my all-time favorite musos, right? The choreography in this film, awesome choreography. It's a cheesy film, yeah, fine. Maybe people didn't like it all that much, but it is one of my all-time favorite Jet Li movies. Love it. The Raid. Alright, here we go. Indonesia, alright? It's the first Indonesian movie I probably saw. First movie that I've seen with Iko Uwais. Again, some great movies coming from that gentleman. Oh man, The Raid. Dark choreography, silat, pencak silat. This is the first time in a movie I've got to see beautiful silat in a movie. Indonesian martial arts, in case you don't know what I'm talking about. This movie's dark, it's got gore, it's a thriller. It's got so many elements to this film, so many winning elements. This is a movie that you have to check out. If you love martial arts, if you love thrillers, if you love action, this movie. There was another movie at the time, Dread, with Carl Urban. Also a good movie, but very American, and it's the same sort of plot. They get stuck in this building and have to fight their way out. But obviously Iko Uwais does it better. The Raid does it so much better. Dread's also a good film. Don't devalue Dread. But yeah, man, The Raid. Check that film out. Okay, here we go. I'm talking about all these my all-time favorite martial arts movies. That inspired me and all things like that. Haven't talked about Jackie Chan yet. Where's Jackie Chan? Here he is. Bang. Wheels and Meals. Now, it's probably not one that people would expect. People probably expect Drunken Master or Police Story. Good film as well. No, man. For me, Wheels and Meals. This was the standout Jackie Chan film for me. When I first saw it, because I knew there was a fight between Jackie. And Benny the Jet Urquidez, big champion kickboxer. One of the all-time great kickboxers. You've got to check out some of his fights. They are pure art. The movie, Wheels and Meals. They're also starring Yuen Biao, who was also one of my favorite martial arts actors at that point in time. Who am I forgetting? Sammo Hung, right? Sammo Hung as well. So this movie, you had the three dragons of Hong Kong. You had Jackie Chan, Yuen Biao, and Sammo Hung. Sammo Hung combo, right? Now, Sammo Hung has always been one of my all-time favorite martial arts movie stars because he's not your generic martial arts movie star, right? Physically, he's not like everybody else. But, man, he was kicking it with the best of them. He's one of the big boys. Who else was in this? Keith Vitali from No Retreat, No Surrender 3, Revenge of the Ninja. Keith Vitali has always been a beautiful on-screen fighter. And again, he's a champion for a karate fighter in real life, and teacher and sensei. But when he fought on screen, when I saw fights with him, his fight scenes are a delight to watch. Much like Benny the Jet Urquidez as well, who's also in this. So that's why this is such a winning combination for me. Yeah, the 3 stars, 2 bad guys. Oh, so good. Great film, great fights. A lot of comedy in it as well. Probably not as much fighting as people would have liked. Probably a little bit too much comedy. I remember taking this. I was going out with a Chinese girl at the time, and I was telling her about how I was into these films. I only had a Cantonese version of this movie, right, with subtitles. So I didn't realize that she only spoke Mandarin. She couldn't speak Cantonese. I took this around to her place and we were watching it. We had a laugh and she enjoyed the film. At least I think she enjoyed the film. She was not a nice person. She turned out to not be such a nice person in the end anyway. But I remember just taking this film around and going, yeah, it's in Chinese. Yeah, it's in Cantonese. It's not in Mandarin. So she had to read the subtitles with me. Ironic. Accident Man with Scott Adkins. Now, Scott Adkins is one of the biggest names in martial arts movies of this time, right now. This was the first proper Scott Adkins movie that I'd seen, and it's based on a comic book. This movie, it's set up, the fights that are set up, it's an absolute joy to watch. One of probably my favourite Scott Adkins movie. Part 2's coming out soon as well, so I can't wait for that. He's like an assassin, but that has to go good. It's got some beautiful fights in it, very Hong Kong inspired. Alright, let's get into ninja films. Now, ninja films. As a kid, you loved ninja films. We love ninja films. If you're a martial arts movie fan, you loved ninja films in the 80s. And my favourite all-time ninja film has to be... It's a toss-up between Revenge of the Ninja with Shokosugi and Michael Dudikoff in American Ninja 2. Now, I have to say American Ninja 2 wins out on that because I was in grade 4 in school at the time, primary school, and I watched this movie a billion times, right? The fight scenes are probably not the best fight scenes, but for a ninja film, it was great. The soundtrack by George S. Clinton, who did the soundtrack to Mortal Kombat in '95, it's great. It's great. If you want to watch a cheesy 1980s style ninja film, because I think it's about 91, 92, so it's not an 80s film, and American Ninja 2 was the ninja flick that you had to check out back in the day. And I can still have fun watching this. It's a trip down memory lane for me. Now, dramatic martial arts movies, you cannot go past Best of the Best, starring Philip Ree and... I remember his name. Eric Roberts. And a stellar cast. A very dramatic, great cast for a martial arts movie. James Earl Jones as the Coach Cousteau. Man, this movie, inspirational. It's more of a drama film than a martial arts film. It's a drama movie with martial arts in it. This movie is one of the best sports martial arts films of all time. Kickboxing movies from the 90s, right? They were everywhere. There's a lot of them. Not necessarily all good. There's very few that were really good. One that sticks out into my mind, saw it on TV the first time on TV back in the day, in the 90s, early 90s I think it was, early to mid 90s, called Final Impact, starring Lorenzo Lamas and Michael Worth. Michael Worth is still active these days. He's more of a filmmaker these days. He was always good fun to watch in these kickboxing films. And this is a great movie. It's a very stereotypical kickboxing movie about a young guy that gets taught by the ex-champion who's having troubles. But there's an interesting twist at the end that you don't expect. And I remember watching it for the first time saying, oh man, what happened there? Good fun kickboxing movie from the 90s. Final Impact. One of my favorites. Alright, here we go. We're really going back now. I think early 80s when I'd been exposed to this movie. The Man from Hong Kong with Jimmy Wang Yeoh. And I think it was the first martial arts movie that was filmed in Australia, right? You had a few familiar faces there, Australian actors. Hugh Keays-Byrne from Mad Max. Yeah, of course, Sammo, right? Who I believe was one of the main choreographers for the movie. Now, Jimmy Wang Yeoh, a very controversial sort of figure in Hong Kong. He had a few things going on with him. This is a very sentimental movie to me. Now, when I was very young, my dad was pretty much responsible for getting me into martial arts films and that whole thing, right? For the person that I am today, you're a young kid, you get influenced very quickly. And I can't remember, he never showed me the whole film, obviously, because it wasn't suitable for a kid of my age at that point in time. So I was really young. And I think the first very vivid memory that I have is the last scene of the film where Jimmy Wang Yeoh, George Lazenby's the bad guy, right? The ex-James Bond. And Jimmy Wang Yeoh, they had the last battle in the tower, and he puts him in the vault, he ties him up to a chair and puts a grenade in his mouth, and like sticky tape, puts duct tapes it into his mouth, and then he pulls a pin and he jumps out the window, and then the whole floor of the building just blows up, and Sky High by Jigsaw, the band Jigsaw, plays as a credits roll, right? And I always remember this scene, man. And I remember Dad showed me this scene. This is one of the very few scenes that he showed me. What else did he showed me Into the Ninja with Franco Nero back in those days as well. That was the first ninja film that I'd seen. When I grew up and I watched it again, obviously for very sentimental reasons, The Man from Hong Kong, one of my all-time favourite martial arts movies, I guess. The fights go on a little bit longer than they should. There's some great fight scenes in here, and there's a few parts in the movie that take place in Hong Kong instead of Australia, and you see like Biao as one of the stunt guys being beaten up and things like that. Great film, fun, you know, and historic in terms of being one of the first Australian martial arts movies. Okay, some of these martial arts movies, straight-to-video American martial arts movies, there were a few that really stuck into my mind and stayed as my all-time favourites. Two movies in particular, Martial Law and Martial Law 2, both starring Cynthia Rothrock. First one stars Chad McQueen, Steve McQueen's son. You saw him also in Karate Kid, the first Karate Kid. He was Dutch, the crazy kid. I think this was one of the first Cynthia Rothrock films I'd seen. Martial Law 2, I think he stands out as my favourite of the two, starring Jeff Wincott, and he's the main dude in this. And yeah, Jeff Wincott, he was great in these martial arts, American martial arts straight-to-video movies. He was great. He was really good. And there's a few great fight scenes in this film. There's one where he's fighting with double sticks. This was the first time that I'd seen a fight scene with double sticks. And man, I still love double sticks to this day. You know, the reason that I trained in double sticks is it was influenced by good old Jeff Wincott and his fight scene, his dojo fight scene in this movie. Great film, you gotta check it out. No Retreat, No Surrender Part 2. Now, No Retreat, No Surrender 2 came out. It had the second title of Raging Thunder. Now, when it came out, we assumed, I think 87, it came out, I remember borrowing it from the video store, new release section, on the same day as Beverly Hills Cop Part 2. So it's like, alright, Beverly Hills Cop Part 2, and No Retreat, No Surrender 2. Let's see what Jason Stilwell is up to after all this time. Well, you put the movie in, and it says Raging Thunder. We thought we had the wrong film. Starring Loren Avedon. Now, Loren Avedon, one of my favorite, all-time favorite martial arts movie stars. Sentimental reasons, and also when he was playing in these seasonal films, these Hong Kong / American made productions, his choreography, his fights were beautiful, beautiful. They were some of my favorite all-time fight scenes in films. When I first saw No Retreat, No Surrender Part 2, I liked it. I liked it. It was like a cross between Rambo and martial arts. It was a great film. And again, Cynthia Rothrock was in that again. Max Thayer, Wang Li was in it as one of the bad guys. Matthias Hughes as the main Russian bad guy. You know, I think that was his first film. And I think it wasn't until about 10 years later or whenever, you know, whenever it was, I'd grown up and VHS was being phased out. And I needed to revisit No Retreat, No Surrender 2 again. And there was this one little pissy crap video store. And they had it there, and I got it, and I converted it to DVD as I used to do back in the day for movies that weren't on DVD yet at the time. Yeah, I just kept renting this movie. I rented it again, and these people, they were rude. These people at this video store were really rude. I'm glad they went out of business because you don't deserve to be in business if you're that rude. They claimed that I didn't return the film. One day, I'd gone in there and they said, you owe us $10, man. This film hasn't been returned. No Retreat, No Surrender 2 has not been returned. I said, it's over there on the counter. You can see it. It's been there for like a week. Oh, okay. Meanwhile, the owner, she was behind and she's like, no, make him pay. Make me pay, jeez. And then the guy goes to me, oh, do you want to buy it? Because nobody rents VHS anymore. Do you want to buy the film? You know, it'll cost you $2 or whatever. And then that woman turns around and says, no, don't sell it to him. Somebody keeps borrowing it. Yeah, me! I'm the only person in the universe borrowing this damn film. So eventually it came out on DVD and that was cool and I was happy. Loren Avedon, unfortunately, had not a lot of films after No Retreat, No Surrender 2. Really good guy. Now, in recent years, where you find out about actors and things like that, and you get to have some interaction with them in the digital age. And yeah, this guy, he's so cool, man. Loren Avedon, he's a cool dude. He's got time for his fans. He's everything that a martial arts movie star should be. The Perfect Weapon with Jeff Speakman. You know, Kenpo Karate Sensei, one of the big boys of Kenpo Karate, represented the name of Kenpo Karate. Unfortunately, he never made as many movies as what would have been nice. But it comes down to politics behind the scenes with movie producers and things like that. Now, The Perfect Weapon, one of the best American martial arts Kenpo Karate movies that you're ever going to see. And it was the first time that I was exposed to Kenpo Karate. First time I'd seen it on TV late one Sunday night, and I was in primary school. And it was many, many years before I got to watch it again to get hold of it because it was hard to find. I couldn't find it at the video store. I couldn't get it on DVD when DVDs came out for a long time. I just couldn't get it. There was this guy on eBay that was making a crappy VHS copy, but that was the only way that you could get The Perfect Weapon. Double sticks, love the double sticks in the film, and seeing Kenpo Karate. And it wasn't until, you become an adult. And I got a girlfriend at one point, and she used to train in Kenpo Karate. And I remember saying, oh, Kenpo Karate, like Jeff Speakman. And yeah, her sensei when she was a kid, now working as security and teaching out of his school, out of his garage from home. Yeah, I went down and I checked out their school, and He tried to provoke me into a bit of I don't know what he was trying to provoke me into. He was punching like, you know, centimeters away from my face, trying to get me to do something. I'm not sure why. What he was testing I was doing Chinese martial arts at the time, but he was testing to see what my reaction would be, and my reaction was very calm, as a martial artist should be. And when you're in somebody's home and dojo, you're not going to act like you're too cool for school. So like I was very respectful of the gentleman. But a lot of things I wasn't really impressed with at this person's school. But it doesn't matter, that's something for another time. Perfect Weapon, beautiful movie, great American martial arts movie, check it out. So that is pretty much my all-time favourite martial arts movie list. If you haven't seen any of the films in the list, check them out. You know, I love these movies. Each and every one of these movies, I love these. These are some of my favourite martial arts movies. And I think I've wasted enough of your time talking about movies. So, yeah, until I guess tomorrow when I'm in isolation some more and I've got nothing else to talk about, we can talk about something else. Alright, see ya.